Remote work is morally wrong, which is what I would say if I was a billionaire.
The people that come fix your house, they can't work from home, but you can? Does that seem morally right? People should get off the goddamn moral high horse with the work from home bullshit.
This characterization of remote work just boils my blood, and I think it's indicative of a larger mindset in America coming from the top down that workers are a pawn and just to be thrown aside at will. We're only talking about remote work here, but if we look at this big picture, taking away the promise of remote work is just a piece of that pie. So if your job can be done remotely, it's almost morally wrong not to allow remote work, and it's kind of offensive that this is even a sentiment among the richest in society. They can work off of an iPhone on a beach somewhere, and we get to commute an hour or so each way every day. Doesn't really seem like a fair trade, but at some point there has to be some give and take here, but we'll get more into that topic later. But it wasn't always like this. In 2020, only 5% of Fortune 100 companies required full-time in-person attendance, and today that number has 10x'd to 54%. Well, the main push behind this is from top executives, and they're protecting their bottom line essentially.
It's like really, you're going to work from home, and you're going to make everyone else who made your car come work in the factory. You're going to make the people who make your food that gets delivered that they can't work from home.
So apparently remote work isn't fair, and it's wrong for a factory worker to have to work in person while someone doing software engineering, they get to work from home. That's a mischaracterization of the situation to try to dilute the problem we have here. Every job is different, comes with different pay, responsibility, and skills. So that's not really an excuse to axe remote work altogether. It's just a diversion to try to protect the bottom line. This argument clearly has some ulterior motives behind it. But to set the stage, let's start at the beginning of remote work. In 2020, remote work exploded because it was required due to the pandemic. And many of you remember when COVID hit, offices just shut down pretty instantly. And so businesses had two choices: shut down completely or delegate some of their work to remote. Many big companies were making a lot of promises back then. Twitter said that employees could work from home forever. That didn't pan out. Another one that comes to mind was Meta saying that they were going to be fully remote in the future. That also has not come to fruition.
I think that it's quite possible that over the next 5 to 10 years, about 50% of our people could be working remotely.
And we can see now how those promises worked out. Meta largely requires 3 days in office from most of its employees, so they're primarily hybrid now. This is a commonality among most of the large companies, either fully in person or the majority of the week is in person. During COVID, they made it sound like offices were dead forever. It was going to be remote from now on. We were entering a new stage of industrialization, I guess you could say, and people were even moving across country because they didn't have to be in office anymore. Employers were saying that location didn't matter, so people adjusted accordingly. Once return to office started picking up, people were pretty mad. A company tells you can work from anywhere, and then they kind of pull the rug from underneath your feet and you have to move back or quit. Most of these firms have taken those promises away, and they are enforcing those return to office policies to either fully in person or hybrid. We're seeing some big players like Amazon or AT&T and now JP Morgan going fully in office or mostly in office, and a lot of times for jobs that just don't really need to be in the office. Hybrid is kind of dominant now. If it's a corporate position, you're likely hybrid or fully in person. Fully remote is kind of just delegated to customer service or some tech jobs. The share of companies requiring office days has climbed to around 72%. CEOs are not going to tell you this, but one of the largest reasons for this return to office push is because of real estate. And these businesses have billions tied up in leases that they can't walk away from right now. So for them, getting back into the office is protecting their investments. There's also a productivity argument coming from them. A lot of CEOs will tell you that working in person drives better collaboration or innovation, and maybe in some niche fields, I can see that, but largely I think you're trading that kind of one-on-one ability to walk over to someone's desk and ask them a question for a great morale boost that comes from working remotely, and that promotes the balance that people strive for and also makes your company desirable from top candidates. A top candidate can be picky with where they work, and if your company is fully in person and they don't want to do that, well, you're not going to get that top talent. JP Morgan's leadership has been very vocal about the need for in-office presence and to maintain that culture and performance. But, something that I would love to ask Jamie Dimon is what performance are you trying to preserve, really? Your stock is up around 200% in the past 5 years where workers have been remote or hybrid. I'd love to hear some more details on that because it seems like you guys have done pretty well for yourselves. As time goes on, it just feels like CEOs are allergic to being decent people. Executives who truly understand and support their employees are far and few between. It's kind of depressing. That makes it even more impressive when you find a company that seems to care and makes you realize, wow, so this is possible and companies just aren't doing it. And I don't think a lot of companies really realize that. From a candidate perspective, we are way more incentivized to work for a company that we think actually cares about us. But anyways, back on Jamie Dimon, give some leeway to your workers here. They are the ones who've pushed that stock price to this level. The profits that you see as a company are due to the sum of the parts and not who's just running it at the top. You're the face of the company, but you're not the one doing the dirty work anymore. But another factor that plays into this would be control, something that some companies really value. Those who like micromanaging find it a lot harder to do that when workers are remote. So it's harder for some managers to measure your performance or keep an eye on you. Let's not forget about the ripple effect that work from home has, though. Entire industries do depend on people driving to work and being there every day. Some examples could be real estate, transportation, construction. There's a huge economic incentive for these sectors to lobby the return to office. Honestly, that is a fair concern. That should be the priority of the argument, but they're not really making that clear. They're using really weird workarounds to try to make you feel bad for wanting to work remotely. And those industries we just talked about employ millions of people, and we wouldn't want massive layoffs in those sectors either. I'm not against hybrid at all. I think 2 days in the office is reasonable. At the same time, there are a lot of jobs that can be done fully remotely, and we need to kind of have a collective discussion on what we do with these jobs. The biggest part of this issue is that employees just do not have the power and the leverage that they did even a few years ago. Companies know that there's tens of thousands of people lined up ready to take the job of someone that leaves their company. Workers know they're replaceable too, which is why nobody is quitting. A corporation has the ability to send the workforce full-time in office because what are the workers gonna do? There's no other jobs that are hiring right now, so they can't quit, and if they fight back, they'll just be fired. These HR teams have amassed a large database of resumes and won't hesitate to pull from it if they need to. In all honesty, workers just don't really have any bargaining power right now, and it's hard to tell when that will shift back in the workers' favor or even just kind of in the middle where both sides have a say at the table. And on bargaining power, it's kind of unfortunate that unions are considered taboo these days. In the 1950s, 35% of the workforce was unionized, and now that number is down to 10%. How are we regressing in worker protections? Shouldn't it be the opposite way? Shouldn't we be going from 35% to 50%? I would characterize this as a new industrial revolution almost, where all the rules are out of the window and corporations can act like quasi-governments. I'd argue that we're closer to a corporatocracy or a plutocracy than a democratic republic at this point. When I was in the process of kind of formulating what I wanted to talk about in this video, I tried my best to think of some solutions that I could give here. I don't want to sit here and tell you something that you already know and waste your time. At the end of the day, corporations control labor and politics through lobbying, and the government is beholden to those that have money. So as long as normal people have have no stake in this conversation, I don't really see this turning around in a meaningful way. What have you really gotten in the past 40 years? And, the statistic we just talked about unions, what have we really seen that has improved our lives from anyone in political office on a large scale? People fight over Democrat and Republican. It's kind of really just all the same. They fight for the same cause, and that being their pockets. People will say anything while running for office, and once they get in, whether it be the power structure that halt their abilities from enacting any of that change, or greed just gets to them. It's almost like every time someone comes around that looks like they might be able to help out, nothing really comes from it. On a little bit of a brighter note, I think one positive of remote work dying off a little bit is that you're not competing against the entire world for every position. Anchoring a job to a specific location makes it a lot less competitive, which means it's hypothetically easier for you to land that job. The job market is really tough out there, so if every job went remote, it would just be a bloodbath and just brutal coming from a job search standpoint. So just from a job protection standpoint, I think there should be a healthy mix of hybrid and fully remote along with the in-person. It's really just when executives make 600 times more than the average employee that gets me a little mad. And then they have the gall to talk down on people that want to do remote work. The stock market has only gone up since COVID, and the work-life balance that came with remote work made people more productive, in my opinion, and contributed to those record profits that we've seen. So no, I don't think remote work will vanish, but almost. Right now it's a perk and definitely not to be expected in every role. We can expect hybrid to be kind of the new standard for most companies that respect their workers. I wish I could have provided some solutions today, and it's just not an easy problem to solve. Anyways, have a good day.